divert our efforts to solving the root problem of enforcement difficulty. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。中国国际电视台 CGTN 提问，我的这个问题同样是问给刘专委的。您刚才给我们具体介绍了一下我们这2年在执行难上取得的一些成效。您刚才也说到了，啃了很多硬骨头。可是我在跟身边很多朋友交流的时候呢，他们也有一个感受，就是说，法院花了那么多力气去解决执行难，可是还是有一些案件得不到执行。那么您认为到底问题出在哪里？我们怎么样才能把书面上的成效和人民群众的感受切实地结合在一起？谢谢。
With CGTN, this question is for Justice Liu. In your opening remarks, Justice Liu, you said that a lot of progress has been made in addressing the enforcement difficulties, and a lot of tough challenges have been tackled. But we still feel that the judgments of some cases around us haven't been well enforced. Then what is the reason for this? How to make sure that the general public can feel that the relevant cases have been enforced? Thank you.
好，您提这个问题啊，应该说是我们的一个痛点。我作为
The question you raised is our pain point.
工作的议员呢，
As one member of the enforcement team in the past several years,
把真金白银装到当事人
I do agree
对我们
that
来说
some cases cannot guarantee
是一个很失败的。
the full enforcement. For example, the cash cannot be put in the certain person's pockets. So that is the problem we are facing. And I want to share with you about the status quo, about such cases.
但是呢，
For one type of those cases, there is actually certain asset to be rehandled, but they are not put in the right place.
比如说，
It fully reflects the complication of the enforcement process. For example, when we are handling a real estate property, when we are trying to auction it, someone just pops out and says that is my house.
如果
And
裁定他就不服，
After giving objection to the auction,
一审二审
there will be direct lawsuit. And during the first and second hearings, maybe 9 months have already passed. Another
我
example,
们的网牌虽然很好，
also one way to handle the asset.
不需要他也会留牌。
Some assets are not needed in the market,
遗物抵押，
so the auction will be
很多
a failure.
申请执行人说我要这个财产干什么？我不同意遗物抵债。遗物不同意
Then
遗物
someone
抵
may
债
say
财产
that
用处置不了
I don't agree
这个案
of repaying the credit with those properties. Then
涉及到
there is nothing we can do to
执行
handle
一
the
个
property.
被执行人的时候，他有好多债主，
Sometimes there may be different lenders who need repayment. So there is another distribution issue for us in the execution process. If we don't have very fair and balanced distribution, then there will also be
当事人的
objection.
权利有个程序救济，你又不能
So
没这
we
个
should
但
have
这
this
个程序
relief
救济有的时候
procedure and consider
需要钱，
all the
它需要时间。
concerned parties' interest.
那么
To
这个
accomplish that, we need
所以
more
我们
time.
在设我们的核心指标的时候，两到三年基本解决
So
这
when
三
we
个
are
核心指
setting
标的
our
时候
core
说有财产的
indicators
公执行在
for
法
the
定期限内
2 to 3
达到
years,
90%
then
那你
for
为什
the
么不达到
available
100%
property,
客观的
we
信息
have set the target at 90%. So that's why we couldn't set it at
有的被执
100%.
行的
Because there are some special cases where we cannot simply give the property back to the other to get them reimbursed. There are also the cases with negative law
不
enforcement,
过来，有的时候
and
它就简
sometimes
单的
for
容易办的
one
想办
personnel
有这样的
he's
情况。
responsible for thousands of cases. So at one time he could only deal with several,
可以说是
and he has to take one step after another. But this kind of situation is quite rare, and gradually, when we are progressing, the total number of the unsolved cases
大家的直接
is
感受
decreasing.
就是我们说
And then there is another thing related to people's
当我们
feelings.
说到刚才说到
is that when we cannot have the law enforcement applied. Just now we have mentioned dishonest people who has the money, but he refuses to pay back the money. But there's a second case in which that dishonest people doesn't have any money, but has already borrowed money. In that case, how could we make sure the law enforcement is in place and the court has tried everything possible but still cannot find anything available, anything valuable with this dishonest person? We did make efforts. We have engaged the resources. However, there's zero result. In that case, we will feel frustrated. But that situation does exist. For enterprises, we all know there are zombie enterprises. And there are many of them, actually. The zombie enterprises, in our judicial procedure, cannot give us any property to handle. And also for the individual debt, they represent 70% of our law enforcement case. For example, the disputes with the car accident, for the damage of the people, and the illegal civil lending, etc. Usually the person concerned, he is already very poor and financially weak. That's why he has borrowed the money, and then with the law enforcement, he has more problem and difficulty in paying back the money. For example, there's a very poor guy. He has borrowed the money to rent a car, and then his car luckily ran into a car accident. He has to pay even more for that car accident damage. In that case, we cannot handle that case immediately, and that is a real case. In that case, we consider it as the commercial risk and even the commercial trap. Sometimes it's the legal risk. In that case, for the court, has the greatest difficulty in finding the accessible property to deal with. And you can come up with a lot of similar examples. But the tricky thing is that every year we have a lot of cases like that, and it's in accumulation. And every year we are under great pressure to deal with these cases. So we have one practice like the termination of this case. It's like the temporary closure of the case. Since we cannot find any available property of this person, we will issue a verdict of a termination of the case. We put it in our archives. Every 6 months, we will do the screening. Once we find out that this person has gained money or has received any property, then we will restart this procedure of law enforcement. And on our internet system, we are still controlling that person, and we are overseeing whether this person has started a luxury consumption or anything. Just now I have given to you an example. If the person is in need, then we will give the judicial relief to that to solve the immediate difficulty. And in that case, what worries us most is whether the court could find the difference between the case with available property and the other cases with no available properties. We have published in this case the judicial explanation, and our supervision system is also following those actions. For the court, we are carefully assuming our responsibilities. That is my answer to this question. And I have talked a little bit more due to the special characteristics of the situation.
我有个问题想要请教，就是关于反腐败行动当中的涉案财产处理问题。